الكلام هو اللفظ المركب المفيد بالوضع، وأقسامه ثلاثة: اسم وفعل وحرف جاء لمعنى، فالاسم يعرف بالخفض.
الحمد لله حمدا لا ينفد، أفضل ما ينبغي أن يحمد، وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تعبد. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. ربي زدنا علما، ربي زدنا علما، ربي زدنا علما، آمين. أما بعد. So in the first lesson we covered al-kalam, the types, speech in the Arabic language and its types, waqsamuhu, the types of speech, and we said there's three, or rather the book mentioned that there's three types: ismun wa fi'lun wa harfun ja'a li ma'na. There's a noun, the verb, and the particle. We defined all of them, and then we gave signs to distinguish between the three of them. So now we can move on to the next chapter, which is Babu al-i'rab. Babu al-i'rab. Al-i'rab, what is this concept? Al-i'rab, in general, in the Arabic language, the word al-i'rab, it means it can be translated to the expression. Yani, this word, the meaning of it pertains to a person expressing a meaning that they have, expressing themselves. Now, as for the meaning of al-i'rab when it comes to the Arabic language, what we have to know is that if we have a word, for example, kitab, this word kitab, the end of the word, which haraka can it end in? We can put dhamma there and say kitabun. We can put fatha there and say kitaban. Or we can put kasra and say kitabin. So the end of the word, changing signs from dhamma to fatha to kasra, this is known as al-i'rab. This is what al-i'rab is. And the reason for that is because when the speaker does this, when the speaker puts, the person who's speaking, whenever he changes the i'rab of the end of the word, the haraka at the end of the word, he is putting the word into a new grammatical function, a new position in the sentence. The word, even though it means book, it's playing a new grammatical function within the sentence. So this is what you're expressing. So for example, in the Quran, if you look at the word, the honored name of Allah, which is Allah, you find that it can have dhamma, fatha, or kasra on it. For example, Allah says in Surah Fatiha, Alhamdu Lillahi. This is in Surah Fatiha. And then you can find that the word Allah, it takes a dhamma. So for example, Allahu la ilaha illahu. So here the word Allah took dhamma. Or in another ayah, it can take fatha. So Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu. So here, Allah took a fatha. So why did this happen? Because lafzul jalala, yani the honored name of Allah, is grammatically, it has a different function within each of these sentences, within each of these ayat. This is the concept of al-i'rab. So from now on forward, firstly, we're going to look at what are the possible categories, or what are the categories of al-i'rab. And we're going to look at the signs of al-i'rab, yani what sign appears at the end of the word in order to show its grammatical function in the sentence. And then once we know all the signs and the types of words that can change, we will then go into the grammatical functions. So we will learn that whenever a dhamma appears on the end of the word, there's a limited number of grammatical possible functions. There's a limited number of possible grammatical functions that this word can have, that this word can play in the sentence. Or for example, if there's a fatha on the end of the word, we will learn exactly what grammatical function can it take. So when it comes to grammatical functions, it's maybe the first time the student is hearing this. So what are the possible grammatical functions? For example, if someone says, Al-kitabu mufidun, the book is beneficial. Here, the word al-kitabu, it is the subject of the sentence because it is a thing that we want to speak about. The subject is what you want to speak about. So the subject, which in Arabic is known as al-mubtada, it takes dhamma. The ruling of mubtada is that it takes dhamma. And what is this definition? It's the subject of the sentence. Just like here, Allahu la ilaha illahu. So in this sentence, Allah is the subject of the sentence, the ayah. So therefore, he takes dhamma. In another sentence, for example, it might be, I might say to you, Ishtaraytu. Ishtaraytu al-kitaba. Ishtaraytu means I purchased. Al-kitaba means the book. So I purchased the book. So here, al-kitaba takes fatha. Why? Because it is the object of the verb. Yani, an action took place. I did an action of purchasing. Now, that action takes place on an object, and that object, we call it the maf'ulun bihi in the Arabic language, or you can say object. So the object of the verb, the thing which the action takes place upon, takes a fatha. Yani maf'ulun bihi takes fatha, it's mansub. Mansub means fatha as well, which we'll learn shortly. So the word kitab here is not the subject of the sentence. It's not what we want to speak about. Rather, it is my action taking place on an object. So that is known as, yani in that case, is a new function. So it has a new sign on it, fatha. So inshallah, this will become more clear for the student as we go along. But what we have to remember is that words have functions within a sentence. Words have a function within a sentence. So I need two things now. I need a dalil, a sign on the word, which is basically the end haraka. And that end haraka is going to tell me what? The function that it plays. So to know the function, I need to know the end haraka on the word. So this is what we're going to learn right now. We're going to learn what is the sign, what are the signs, the end haraka that can go on the end of the word. And then after that, we're going to learn what the functions are. Okay. So I'll rub the board off now. And we go into the book. Babu al-i'rabi. Chapter of al-i'rab. Here is the technical definition of al-i'rab. Yani, this is the definition given by the scholars of Arabic grammar. And just as a fa'ida, just as a benefit, when someone says this is the linguistic definition, yani lughatan, they might say lughatan. 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 Or they might say to you istilahan. Istilahan. For example, They might say the word of al-i'rab lughatan means such and such, and the word of al-i'rab istilahan means such and such. So they might give two definitions of one word according to the language lughatan and according to the technical definition istilahan. So lughatan, we find this definition in the dictionaries. As for istilah, it means ijtima', together. Yani, it's the definition upon which the scholars of that particular science gathered and agreed upon. So istilahan, yani ijtima'an, but who are the people who done the istilah? Who were the ones who came and gathered up? Ijtama' al-ulama'u, istalaha al-ulama'u, yani it's the scholars who gathered and agreed upon this definition. So this definition here of al-i'rab, it is the istilah. It is the definition upon which the scholars of Arabic grammar agreed. So al-i'rab, it means huwa تغيير أواخر الكلم لاختلاف العوامل الداخلة عليها لفظا أو تقديرا. So al-i'rab, it means هو تغيير أواخر الكلم. هو, it is تغيير, the changing أواخر الكلم, of the ending of the words. So if I have a word now, al-bayt. Al-bayt simply means the house. So I can say al-baytu, al-bayta, and al-bayti. The word al-bayt, it can take either of these three harakat. So this is what is meant by what al-i'rab is. هو تغيير أواخر الكلم. It is the changing of the end of the word in terms of the harakah. Why? What's the reason for that? لِإِخْتِلَافِ الْعَوَامِلِ الدَّاخِلَةِ عَلَيْهَا. Li means due to or for. Ikhtilaf means changing. Al-awamil al-dakhila. Al-awamil is plural of the word amil, which means worker or doer. Here, we can translate it to mean agent. Yani, what does this mean, agent? Yani, al-awamil al-dakhilati. Yani, there are certain external factors. You can also call it external factors or grammatical agents. And these external factors are causing the end of the word to change harakah, for the end harakah to change. For example, I can say to you, al-baytu. Okay, al-baytu. I take those two away. I can say to you, al-baytu jamilun. Or I can say to you, al-miftahu fil bayti. Al-miftahu fil bayti. So look at the word al-bayt in the first sentence and the word al-bayt in the second sentence. The word al-bayt, the ending of it changed. That's the first thing that we realized. It went from dhamma to kasra. Why? Because a grammatical agent entered upon this word. لِاخْتِلَافِ الْعَوَامِلِ الدَّاخِلَةِ عَلَيْهَا. And that grammatical agent, it was fi. So fi entered the word al-bayt. It came before the word al-bayt. And he made al-bayt go from al-baytu to become al-bayti. Al-baytu jamilun, al-miftahu fil bayti. So this is what al-i'rab is. Yani the end of the word will change due to some sort of external factor. That external factor could be lafzan or taqdiran. It could be something that you actually pronounce. It could be another word which affects another word. So fi is a word by itself which means in. Now al-miftahu, the key, fil bayti is in the house. So the word fi is affecting the word al-bayt. So it could be a completely separate word that affects another word, causing the change in the end haraka, which essentially means a change in grammatical function. That's what it means by lafdhan, yani an actual word that you pronounce, lafd, a pronunciation, an utterance. Or taqdiran, yani Taqdiran means something that you can't see, something that you approximate to be there. For example, the word al-baytu ends in dhamma. So what is causing the word al-baytu to end in dhamma? They say that the grammatical agent affecting the word al-baytu or this word here is going to be al-ibtida'u. Al-ibtida'u. Or according to other scholars, they say the khabar. So al-ibtida means commencement. Because this word is commencing and beginning the sentence, that is a factor which we cannot pronounce, but we taqdiran, and we approximate it to be there. We approximate that this factor of commencing the sentence, because this word starts the sentence off, that is a factor to make this word have dhamma on it. So the grammatical agents, we will learn about them as well. And the grammatical agents is what causes the word to change into, to have a new function. So what does this mean? This means we have a word. That word will have a grammatical agent affecting it. And that grammatical agent affecting this word will cause the word to end in a particular haraka, in a particular sign, causing it, meaning it will have a new grammatical function. It will have a new grammatical function. Now again, inshallah, as we go throughout the book, the whole definition, we will apply it practically as we go on throughout the book. So it will become more clearer as we go along, inshallah ta'ala. Okay. Then the author, rahimahullah, Ibn Ajrumiyah, he says, وَأَقْسَامُهُ أَرْبَعَةٌ رَفْعٌ وَنَصْبٌ وَخَفْضٌ وَجَزْمٌ. The types of al-i'rab is 4 types. وَأَقْسَامُهُ, and his types, أَرْبَعَةٌ are 4. رَفْعٌ وَنَصْبٌ وَخَفْضٌ وَجَزْمٌ. رَفْعٌ means, let's write them down. We have رَفْعٌ, then we have نَصْبٌ, then we have خَفْضٌ, and then we have جَزْمٌ. Raf'un essentially means that the word ends in dhamma. Nasbun means the word ends in fatha. Khafdun means the word ends in kasra. Okay, so I'll put the line here so you know that this is a fatha, it goes above the word. And then the kasra, this line, the kasra is below this line, therefore it's a kasra. And then jazm basically means that the word ends in sukun. So the end of the word can either be a dhamma, fatha, kasra, or sukun, raf'un wa nasbun wa khaftun wa jazmun. Now the student may ask, okay, so why do we have these new words? Why don't we just say the word ends in dhamma, the word ends in fatha, the word ends in kasra, the word ends in jazm? Why are we using these new 4 words? Raf'un wa nasbun wa khaftun wa jazmun. The reason being is because some words, they don't accept the dhamma on the end of it. Some words, they cannot accept for there to be a dhamma on the end of it. However, they can take a sign which replaces dhamma. So dhamma is basically the sign that we want to put on the word, but because we can't put dhamma there, we have a replacement sign, a naib, a substitute for dhamma. So therefore, this word raf'un, it means dhamma as the original sign, but if you can't put dhamma, we have to put one of the replacement signs, one of the substitute signs, which we're going to come to know afterwards. For example, how do you form the dual word? How do you show two of something? How do I say 2 houses? I would say baytani. I can say baytani, or I can say baytaini. Baytani or baytaini. Both of these words, they mean, they both mean 2 houses. Okay. This is the dual word. Okay, so for example now, Baytani, if it has a grammatical function where it requires a dhamma, but we can't put dhamma here because it would change how the word should be said. It should be said Baytani. So what happens is, for example, this alif here is the replacement of the dhamma. Alif is considered replacement of dhamma. So raf'un means dhamma or a sign which replaces it. So because the alif here represents dhamma, yani niyabatan ani dhamma, is substitute for dhamma. Therefore, this word raf'un is more generic. It includes dhamma and any sign that replaces it. When it comes to the word baytaini, let's say the word bayt should have had a fatha or a kasra. So when you dualize it, when you make it into dual, it becomes baytani and baytaini. So the sign that replaces the fatha and the kasra is going to be this ya. So this ya here replaces the fatha and the kasra. So again, this ya now becomes a replacement for the fatha and the kasra. So nasbun includes fatha and any sign that replaces it. And khafdun includes kasra and any sign that replaces it. And the same thing with jazm. So again, like I said, inshallah, this will become more clear for the student as we go along. It's not too difficult to understand when we come to the practical side of things. Okay, so أقسامه أربعة رفع ونصب وخفض وجزم. So raf'un means dhamma, nasbun means fatha, khafdun means kasra, and jazmun means sukun. So the end of the word can either end in dhamma or a sign that substitutes for dhamma, or it can end in fatha or a sign that replaces and substitutes for fatha, or the word can end in kasra or a sign that replaces and substitutes for kasra, or it can end in sukun or a sign that replaces and substitutes for sukun. These are very important words that we have to remember and memorize. Then the author, he says, rahimahullah, فَلِلْأَسْمَاءِ مِنْ ذَلِكَ الرَّفْءُ وَالنَّسْبُ وَالْخَفْضُ وَلَا جَزْمَ فِيهَا. He says, فَلِلْأَسْمَاءِ. The word asma, it is plural of the word ism. So ism means noun and asma means nouns. So nouns, فَلِلْأَسْمَاءِ مِنْ ذَلِكَ. So, fa means so, لِلْأَسْمَاء. For the nouns, min dhalika, min dhalika means from that, yani from these signs here. So for the noun, from these signs, الرفع والنصب والخفض. So the noun, it has الرفع. The noun can end in dhamma, or a sign that replaces dhamma. والنصب, the noun can also end in fatha, or a sign that replaces fatha. والخفض, and the noun can also end in kasra, or a sign that replaces kasra. Just like the example that I put on the board, bait, al-bait. I can say al-baytu, al-bayta, and al-bayti. So this word al-bait, it can accept raf'un, al-raf, dhamma, al-nasb, fatha, al-khafd, kasra. But the author says, وَلَا جَزْمَ فِيهَا. However, you cannot put sukun on the end of this word. You can't say al-bayt and put sukun on the end of it. So nouns cannot take sukun, but they can take dhamma, fatha, and kasra. As for the verb, فَلِلْ أَفْعَالِ. So the word al-af'al, or af'al, af'al is plural for the word fi'al. It was the verb. This means verbs. So the verb, what can the verb take? الرفع والنصب والجزم ولا خفض فيها. The verb can take dhamma, it can take fatha, and it can take sukun, ولا خفض فيها, but it can't take kasra. It cannot take kasra. Naam. So we'll come to examples of that later on, inshallah. So, naam. So what happens now? So words in general, they can change, yani fatha, dhamma, kasra. What happens if a word doesn't change? So these are for words, yani i'rab applies to words that can change. The end of it, it can change from dhamma to fatha to kasra, etc. What happens if a word can't change. For example, if I have the word aina, it means where, and it's used for questioning. Aina Muhammadun, where is Muhammad? So the word aina, can it become ainu, aini, and aina? It's not possible. Aina is fixed how it is. It's always fatha on the end. So words that are fixed don't apply to this category. They don't apply to this chapter. It's only words that can change. Bait, kitab, qalam, jamil, kabir, saghir. Those words, the end of it can change. But words where the end of it is fixed, they don't apply here. These words, we call them mabni. We call them mabni. So words where the ending is fixed, yani the end haraka is fixed, we call them mabni. Mabni means, yani, you can translate it to mean static, or you can say fixed. Yani, the end of it will never change. It's mabni. So you say, for example, mabni al-fath, fixed upon al-fath. Mabni al-kasr. For example, the word naam. For example, naam. For example, the pronoun anti. Anti means you when you're speaking to a woman. So when you're speaking to a woman, you say anti, which means you. This anti, this kasra never changes. You can't say anta or antu to mean you for a feminine. It's always kasra. So here we say mabni al-fath. We say mabni al-kasr. We say mabni al-kasr. Mabni yani fixed, al-kasr, upon kasra. So al-i'rab in general, it applies to words where the end of it can change in order to show a new function within the sentence. As for words that the end of it doesn't change, then it won't apply here. We'll just simply call them mabni, yani fixed. And then we go to Babu Ma'rifati Alamat al-I'rab, chapter of knowing the signs of al-I'rab. And this we will start in the next class, inshallah. هذا وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.